Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be getting a bunch of stuff done, getting the 6.2 right there ready to install in the Charger station wagon. So what I need to do today is Cerakote a whole bunch of stuff. So we have the stainless steel transmission crossmember that was made by a subscriber, Aaron Rue. Still big shout out to him because he's helped out with a bunch of stuff on the project and he just continues to help out. I'm just very excited that he's been helping me because it would have been very difficult to get some of this stuff done. He made misalignment spacers for the lower control arms. Just a big shout out to him. But also I am working with Cerakote. So I'm going to be Cerakoting that transmission crossmember, even though it's stainless steel and it could just stay raw stainless. It looks really good, but I just like it not really flashy, you know, just nice in a satin black is going to be perfect. And Cerakote has like the best satin black that you can use. So we're going to be doing that in satin black, the rear lower control arms, the front lower control arms, the rear knuckles, because they look awful from Dodge. Whatever they coat them in, it does not last very long. And these are off that 18 Durango that was wrecked. And it only had like, I think 30,000 miles. You can see all this stuff is already rusty. The coating's already peeling off. Back here is rusty. We're gonna coat all that stuff. It's gonna look brand new, as well as the engine mounts. So I made those custom engine brackets so everything worked, so it would work with the all-wheel drive system. Everything would be nice and tucked up. And then later on when I turbo it, I have plenty of room for piping and I don't have to worry about the stock mounts, and then it's all poly and there isn't all that rubber stuff. So let's get to work. It's gonna be quite a bit of work because I need to first blast everything. I got this blasting cabinet. It isn't the best. I had an older Harbor Freight blasting cabinet and it's like they went backwards. So the older one was like one bottom piece and now every piece is like a separate piece, so it fits in a smaller box, which I guess makes sense for shipping, but assembly, this thing takes a very long time. So we're gonna blast everything with 100 grit aluminum oxide, which I already have in there. And then after that, we're going to just go through the steps of Cerakoting, and I'll just kind of show you how to do it kind of little by little. But I'm gonna also put a link in the description for Cerakote's website. There is a bunch of products. There's also prismatic powders, and they have the largest selection of powder coating and the largest selection of colors. So let's get to work on this. We have a bunch of stuff to do. We have all of the Cerakoting scale. We have the gun stand mount. We have the screens to strain the Cerakote. The gun right here. I'll put links in the description for everything you need to Cerakote, as well as a bunch of different colors right here. parts are now blasted with 100 grit aluminum oxide and blown off with air and then cleaned with acetone. So I don't yet have an acetone tub, so I could just dunk these in there and let them sit, but I blew them off with air and then sprayed them down with acetone. All you're trying to do, and I'm not too worried about these parts because it's not like that oily engine block over there. All you're trying to do with the air is get the leftover media off of it. And then with the acetone, you're just trying to get the, you know, oils or whatever's left of the metal out of it. So when you coat it, there isn't any residue and it doesn't cause any adhesion problems. So you really want these to be clean, but we're ready to coat these. So what I'm going to coat them with is this E100 Cerakote Blackout. And I really like this color. It's a nice semi-gloss finish, or kind of like a matte-ish black finish. You can increase the gloss units with using different ratios of the catalyst. So what we're going to use is an 18:1, and I have Cerakote's electronic scale, and we also have one of these measuring cylinders. So they have a bunch of different sizes. I have the relatively small one. And then we also have the paint gun Cerakote recommends to use with their coatings. So I also work with AWD. So this is an LPH 80. And I also have Cerakote's very convenient stand, which you just use a fitting like that, and it just sits in there, which really makes it easy to fill it, to clean the gun. Everything really works out. Plus, I really like how they look. Then you're going to need to strain the coating after you mix it, and you put this right onto the cup. They fit in there perfectly. Cerakote really thought everything out very well. So let's get this mixed up and get these parts coated. And I only have 3 hangers or 3 hooks in the oven, so I'm going to do 3 things at a time. So we have the 2 engine mounts, we have the transmission cross member, and then I'm going to work on, I'll probably be able to hang the 2 engine mount pins for the poly bushings in the next batch, and then probably the 2 sway bar mounts. Those are just, what is this called? Whatever it's called, I don't like it. So we're going to do that in the same color. Everything's going to be the same color. It's all the blackout. But then we'll do those, and probably either a lower control arm or a knuckle, and then the last batch will be 1 knuckle or lower control arm, and then the other 2 pieces. So let's get this stuff coated, because I cannot wait to see all this stuff nice and clean and fresh. And the blackout is actually really corrosion resistant / scratch resistant. It works very well for things that are going to have bolts in them and things that are going to need, you know, I should be able to get in here detailed shot inside, which will prevent rust. And also, you know, it's kind of like a film. So then the poly bushings will have kind of a nice surface to ride on instead of just bare metal. So another cool resource that Cerakote has on their website a lot of people don't know about is the catalyst mixing calculator. So whatever Cerakote product you're using that needs a catalyst, you can go and find it, then come down here, and it has different gloss levels. You just select whichever one you're going to use. I'm going to use 18:1, and then you just go off of whatever the scale tells you. You enter it right here, and then it says do math. You can reset it, and it tells you exactly the amount of catalyst you need, which is really great. So you don't have to rush and use a calculator and do all kinds of stuff while you're trying to mix the Cerakote. Just finished coating a bunch of stuff with Cerakote, but I ended up running out of the sampler. So Cerakote sent me a bunch of samplers to figure out what colors I was gonna like and which colors I was gonna use. So what I'm gonna do is get the neck size up, and I would really recommend doing that because these have a shelf life of around 12 months, I believe, from ship date. So you don't wanna get a huge one or get a gallon and then never use it, and then it goes bad and expires. So now that I've used this one up, and it goes pretty quick when you have a sampler. So what I ended up coating, like I showed you guys, is both of the engine mounts for the Hellcat engine. We have the transmission cross member that I had a subscriber made, Aaron Rue, and this thing, I mean, man, it looks awesome now. I mean, it looked really good in stainless steel, but it just looks super clean. It's not flashy. It's gonna be underneath the car. This is a really nice coating because it protects it from like chemicals, a bunch of other stuff. I believe the blackout is good up to like 500 degrees. And then if you have to go, which this will never see 500 degrees unless the car catches on fire. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But it's just really nice. So I also coated the pins in here, and this coating is actually pretty slick. So these aren't gonna be like a lower control arm or move anything. I would still coat the pins like this if they were for a lower control arm, but I put some of the lithium grease on there. They have a micro slick finish, which I could have done on there, and technically then it wouldn't need any lubricant, but it's still a good idea. So I'm not gonna put any lubricant in there because it's not a movable part. It's just for an engine mount. It's just gonna stay stationary. But I really love how the finish of these came out. They look so nice. And then this, I mean, man, look at that. It looks so factory, and it's really, really durable. So now that that's done, I also was able to get the sway bar mounts done in the same color, and they look a lot better than zinc plating. So Energy Suspension zinc plates them, but I think they do like the least amount of zinc plating that they have to. So it just makes these look a lot nicer, and they don't look so flashy, and they'll just be kind of hidden up in there. And I like the gloss. So it's like a kind of like a little bit more than a semi-gloss, but it's not like a full gloss. So I'm going to pretty much stop here. I'm going to design some parts for the Hemi, and I'm going to start off with the fuel rails. So there's a company that makes these fuel rails, but they have a monopoly in the market. So it's the only company that makes them. And you start off with like a $500 set of fuel rails, which Radium fuel rails are way cheaper than that, and they're way better quality. On top of that, if you start adding stuff onto the fuel rails, like they have this fuel pressure sensor option, which stays in the line back here, kind of like factory, which I don't see why you'd do that. Why wouldn't you just have it in the fuel pressure regulator? Not exactly sure, but it's like another $175 for that line. And then you just keep getting nickeled and dimed, and then you have like $1,200 in a set of fuel rails. Medium ones for the LS, both fuel rails were like, I think they were like under 200 bucks. I think it was 175 bucks from Radium for both of those fuel rails. So what I'm gonna do, gonna design some Dash 10 fuel rails, and then I'm just gonna make a mount or bracket so the fuel pressure regulator mounts somewhere, and then I'll have the fuel pressure sensor in. I'll probably have, since the fuel pressure sensor is over here, I'll probably have the regulator mount somewhere around here because you don't need to really see it. And you want to run, both lines to the regulator. Do something similar to the FD, like I made that little bracket, and then it bolted the fuel pressure regulator to it, and then it's Dash 10 in, and then the return goes out, and then you just have two either Dash 10s going into the fuel rail on the front, which will be really clean and really nice. So since I need to make those, then I'm going to also do an in-tank fuel pump hanger for the Durango. So the same company makes like a fuel system for the Durango, and I was like, well, maybe I should buy it because I already have their fuel system I got it for the Charger, but then I had to redesign the fuel tank, and now I'm going to use some, they have the AM 1000 intake fuel pumps. So I'm going to use two of those, and this company just uses more Hellcat fuel pumps. So they're 525s, and they're just like, well, we have one, and then you could get two of those, and then or you could have 3 of them. It just doesn't make any sense. You could just do more with less if you just used a larger fuel pump instead of using like Hellcat fuel pumps. So I'll probably, for the Charger, end up using 2000s in tank, and I have to make the fuel tank anyway, so I'll just redesign everything. But for the Durango, I'll probably do the same thing. So it's thousands in tank, and you just have 2 pumps still, instead of having 3 pumps, more fuses, more relays, because I'm pretty sure the Durango must come factory with 2 pumps. So it'll be really nice. I'll just drop in. It's pretty simple because it's not like the Charger tank. It's like a flat hanger. It just goes up and down. And I have the SRT Grand Cherokee fuel tank, which is the same. I'm pretty sure it's the same exact tank, same fuel pump. So I could design it off of that, not have to worry about pulling the fuel pumps out of this. And then, you know, it's a really simple system. It's not very much material. And then I also have these nice connectors that are kind of like factory. So instead of having some silicone, which I've never liked, some silicone holding the wires in to the billet aluminum fuel pump housing, you have these nice, you know, you have this nice connector that has an O-ring, and it's just really, really clean. So I'm going to do that, and then I could still have the, you know, the fuel sending unit and all that stuff, and not have any issues. But yeah, let's grab the fuel rails off of here. I also need to pull the Supercharger. So I'll probably pull the Supercharger before I go home, because I need to put the Hellcat, because the Trackhawk and the Durango heater hose lines, or the hard lines, and the soft lines are different. So I need to swap these pipes. I haven't even ordered them yet, but I need to order those, put those on, get the you know, the rubber ones, put those on, and then we could get all that stuff in. And I'm also waiting on the TRX 90-degree oil filter housing. So instead of the oil filter being here, which is an issue on my subframe because that bolt for the steering rack is right there, it wouldn't fit the oil filter. So T-Rex has a 90-degree oil filter housing, which brings the oil filter right here. And then it has this little nice little spout thing. So when you change the oil, it just channels it, and it's pretty nice. So once that comes, I'll put that on, do the Supercharger stuff. I should have the fuel rails designed tonight, which will be really nice. And then we'll have the bracket probably designed for the fuel pressure regulator, and the in-tank pump assembly designed for the Durango. So then I could have all this stuff ready to go. And once the Durango is fixed, which is going to be not next week, but the week after, we'll get that all on the frame machine, get her all sorted out. Then I could paint the engine bay and start putting everything back in the car. And also the fuel tank needs to go back in, and then we'll do aftermarket fuel lines and all that stuff. I now have the supercharger off, and there's one very concerning issue I found inside the engine. So when I pulled the supercharger, this little cap right here, I'm really happy that it's a nice squishy rubbery cap, was just chilling on top of cylinder 1's intake valve. You can kind of see where it was bouncing around in there. Don't know how it got in there, but I'm very happy that it's soft and rubbery, and it's too large to have gone through the intake valve. So what I think happened was it was just bouncing back and forth because the intercooler is right there, and it can't, you know, it couldn't go through the intake valve, it couldn't go up into the supercharger. I'm lucky. So I don't know how it got in there, but I'm really happy it didn't do any damage. If it would have got sucked through the intake valve, it would have, you know, probably bent the valve. It could have caused a bunch of issues once it got in the combustion chamber with it being rubber and it melting. It could have gotten the rings. Then it would have got sucked out the exhaust valve. It would have got stuck on the cat, whatever was left. Really happy that I found this. I'm really happy that I decided to do these supercharger spacers. And I wasn't going to do them because I was like, well, it has low miles. I could do them later. But this is a really good idea to upgrade these because, as you can see, it has these nice O-rings that go around the oil galleys. What happens, if you guys noticed in the time lapse, is this part of the oil galley on both sides, there's no metal. It's just a rubber kind of O-ring just like that, but it doesn't have anything to hold it. So as you increase boost, and even on stock boost, it starts to blow those O-rings out into this cylinder, and it just pushes blow by in there, which then causes a bunch of issues. As you increase the boost, you get more and more blow by. This is just a really good idea. I would recommend, if you buy a Hellcat, just get these and stick them on. It will save you so much in the future, and then you don't have to do them, and they have like a nice cover that goes on the bottom. But I would really recommend these. They're also an insulator, an isolator. So then if you have these on the supercharger, in between the supercharger and the head, it reduces the amount of heat that's going to be transferred from the aluminum to the aluminum. Plus the intercoolers are in the supercharger, and then it doesn't heat it up as much, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to mask these off so I don't get anything or any bugs or anything gets inside the intake valves or into the cylinders or anything like that. So when I get the supercharger ready to go back on, then I could, you know, slap her back on. I'm going to pull the fuel rails off really quick. I was able to start designing a bunch of parts for the Charger as well as the Durango, because once the engine goes back in the Durango, I'm going to also need another set of fuel rails, you know, the whole fuel pressure regulator mounting situation. And really out there right now, there isn't a really good kit. There's kits out there, but they're not that great. There's nothing that has a really nice fuel pressure regulator mount. You know, most of the time it's just you mount it wherever you can, and it's not really a clean install. And that's how I like to, you know, when I design parts, I like them to be a nice clean install. So I'll work on that. You know, I'll send that bracket off to Cerakote Send. It'll just bolt to the water neck for the supercharger. It'll be really clean, and then we'll get everything else with the fuel pump for the Durango as well as the Charger. But I'm also gonna make some fuel lines holders. So instead of using the stock ones or the stock fuel lines, I'll be able to hold up a -10 and hold up the -8 return, which will be really nice on the Charger as well as the Durango. So I'm gonna end the video here. We'll be getting some more stuff designed. I'm gonna be getting some stuff sent off to get machined, kind of rush that. I really wanted to put the engine into the car, but I didn't want to rush it. So I still need those hard lines for the heater core or the heater hoses and the soft lines. And that's really why I didn't put the supercharger back onto the engine. And I didn't want to put the engine into the car and then have to lift the heavy supercharger over the nicely bodyworked and painted fenders and you know, the bumpers on it, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's heavy, I could drop it, even with two people. It's just one of those things, there's a lot of harnesses in there, just a lot of room for error. I could have used a cherry picker, but it's at my other shop, and then I would have had to go get it, and then I would have had to figure out how to get it to hold the supercharger up. So I'm going to have that T-Rex oil filter housing, the hard lines, by the end of the week, either Friday or Saturday. I'll be able to slap all that stuff on there. We'll be able to get it in the car. I'm also getting the tool for the supercharger pulley, so I'll have the smaller pulley on there, I'll have the bigger overdrive, and then I'll have to, you know, put the fuel rail, the new injectors, and then we'll have, you know, fuel pressure regulator, we'll have everything to support the fuel system, and then I'll just have to get everything tuned. But then, once she's in the car, she'll actually start up before being able, you know, before I go and tune her. So I'll still be able to start it, I'll be able to drive it onto the trailer or into the trailer, whichever one I need to get it enclosed is what needs to happen. But I can't wait to see this car. I can't wait for the first start of her, but I'm gonna end the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, thumbs up, throw a comment below. As always, see you guys next time.